Portable DAC amps are pretty easy to find. For very affordable options, you could pick up something like the Apple USB-C audio cable for under $10. And for hundreds of dollars more, you could end up getting something that already exists for far cheaper. Today, we are taking a look at the new Colorfly CDA-M1P. This portable device costs $80. The folks at Shenzhen Audio sent the Colorfly CDA-M1P, what a wonderful name. Anyway, send it to me for review. If you're in the mood to spend money this holiday season, check out Shenzhen Audio. They've got all the esoteric stuff along with the mundane for audiophiles. The CDA-M1P uses a singular AK4493 SEQ DAC chipset. Some variant of this particular DAC chip can be found in affordable devices, particularly on AliExpress. AKM says that the goal was to provide a wide range of audio support, but with low power consumption. The CDA supports the highest PCM signal and DSD up to 512. It does not have MQA decoding, for better or worse. The CDA comes with a 3.5mm and 4.4mm balanced headphone out, with a maximum of 4 VRMS at 600 ohms through the balanced output. According to Colorfly, this should translate to 240 milliwatts at 32 ohms as the peak potential power. We don't get any other measurements. This device has low and high gain mode and the typical DAC filters. Colorfly says that the CDA is compatible with all devices, including mobile devices. The CDA has volume memory, which is supposed to maintain the same volume on the device that was previously set the last time it was used. Colorfly makes some allusions in their marketing, which should be dispensed with immediately. First, while the device has balanced output, it is not true balanced signal. Because there's only one DAC chip, the left and right channels do not have independent processing or independent amplification. Instead, each headphone output has its own amplification. Second, Colorfly says that the 4493 DAC will result in a cleaner and quieter background to bring out the natural essence of the music. While lower THD levels are fine, they do not result in more detail or greater essence to the music. As for build, the CDA is very chunky, heavy, and for a portable DAC amp, that might be a deal breaker for some. It is, however, very well built. It has an all-metal chassis with 2 tactile buttons for volume, filter selection, and gain control. The CDA has a singular LED which will provide visual feedback over the audio playback and gain. The CDA comes with a USB-C cable, which seems sturdy enough. To switch between gain modes, you have to press both the buttons at once. To select among the various DAC filters, you have to long press both buttons at once. Ultimately, Colorfly offers a fairly rudimentary DAC amp, but one with arguably decent power output. It is a large, heavy device that both impresses with its build and causes worry with its potential to scratch or damage mobile devices to which it is connected. For every DAC or amp review, I conduct the same test. Simply listening and making judgment calls is not enough, as subjective impressions alone can be incredibly misleading. On the other hand, looking just at measurements can give a false sense of knowledge when you have not actually used the device. I combine measurements when available with subjective listening impressions, but I make my listening tests as repeatable and science-backed as I can. This is why I rigorously conduct A/B comparisons, explain what I did, and encourage others to do the same. To that end, I tested the CDA in multiple phases. In Phase 1, I used the CDA as one of my go-to devices for several weeks. I plugged it into my desktop, laptop, iPad, and iPhone, along with my LG V30 and Windows computers. I listened to high-resolution lossless files, streamed lossy content, and consumed a variety of content. I used numerous headphones and IEMs through both the balanced and single-ended outputs. The idea in this phase was to determine if the device exhibited any odd behavior, incompatibility, or defects through regular use. In Phase 2, I compared the CDA against some alternatives. This includes the Low 2 PAW S1, Direct Beam 4, X-Duo XD05 Balanced 2, and the Matrix Mini iPro 3. I plugged each device into my Windows and Mac systems and sent signal to two at once using Voicemeeter Banana on Windows and multi-output device on Mac. I plugged the single-ended output into a passive AB switch and used various headphones and IEMs to conduct numerous hours-long comparisons over several days. I tried to volume match the built-in amps of the devices when available and through system volume controls. The goal was to determine if the CDA presented an obviously different sound from the competitors. In Phase 3, I plugged low and high impedance headphones into the CDA to figure out if the device could drive them. I used dynamic and planar headphones and IEMs for this portion of the test. Throughout this process, I used many headphones and IEMs. The list includes the Focal Elex, Bairdynamic DT880, Avitone Planar, audeze LCD2 Classic, and the LCD1, Allo S5X, Moondrop Aria, Tin Hi-Fi T2, 7Hz Timeless, Final Audio B2, and some others. I strongly encourage people to conduct these types of true volume-matched A/B tests at home. For about $25, you can find the necessary off-the-shelf components to create your own test bench. If you want less reviewer and fanboy BS, I think you need to establish a reliable, repeatable testing method that mitigates against audiophile typical nonsense. Let's delve into the results of the tests. In Phase 1, I used the CDA as one of my go-to devices for several weeks, as I mentioned. The goal again was to see if it malfunctioned or caused any issues. The overall experience I had was very positive. I never encountered connectivity problems with any of my devices, and the CDA performed exactly as I would have expected. Colorfly's USB protocol integration lets you connect to any source device without the need for drivers. This is nothing unique to the CDA. Most other DAC amps also do the same, but I might as well mention it here. The CDA's DAC filters are frankly pointless. DAC filters, irrespective of which DAC, are useless. They are a gimmick. They kick in well beyond the human hearing above 20 kHz. Most audio is not recorded into the 20 kHz range, let alone beyond it, so these filters are meaningless. The one problem I did have in my overall experience is the sheer bulk of the CDA. It's a heavy beast. So I never felt comfortable having it attached to my phones or tablets. I couldn't put it in with my phone in my pocket, for example, because the combination is just too bulky and heavy. I couldn't put the combination of source and CDA into a bag, out of concern that the DAC would move around and scratch my devices. On the one hand, this is generally a concern I have with these dongle DACs, so it's not like the CDA is the only device which may damage the sources. But on the other hand, the CDA is quite frankly the heaviest USB drive-sized DAC amp I have ever used, and that is a notable problem. If I compare it to the exceedingly large X-Duo XD05, then yes, the CDA looks minuscule. But I would not call the XD05 a truly portable DAC amp, and certainly not in the same category as something like the CDA. But the physical size of the CDA is my only point of concern. Otherwise, this device performed perfectly well. In Phase 2, I compared the CDA against several other competitors. I used my usual A/B testing methodology. In a true A/B environment, when volume is closely matched, there is no difference at all between the CDA and other devices. They are all neutral, transparent, flat, call it what you will. The CDA does not have a more detailed or dynamic sound, and neither do the other devices that I tested. I have to take a moment and emphasize how important it is for reviewers to conduct repeatable tests. The false narrative that all DACs sound different is directly related to reviewers refusing to put effort into the work. In the past few weeks, a handful of people have complained on my channel that an A/B test with passive switch boxes is not reliable. They claim I'm misleading people, and their basis for saying that is, frankly, I think, odd. They say that, of course, switch boxes make what is connected to them sound the same, which is why I'm misleading them. Passive switch boxes do not alter the signal. ASR even measured one because of this kind of complaining and found there's no evidence to support this contention. Funny enough, you don't actually hear these types of arguments from people in the music industry, producers, engineers, or artists, people who actually use this sort of stuff. It always comes from the depths of the audiophile forums. Regardless, if you hear that passive switch boxes are not reliable, Demand concrete evidence from the people who make that claim, and do your own research. The answer, I am confident, will be that the claim has no merit at all. Anyway, with all that done, you should all be pleased that the CDA performed as well as other devices that cost many times more than it. We should rejoice that at the sub $100 price point, we are getting performance that supposedly was reserved for products many times the cost. Finally, in Phase 3, I used various IEMs and headphones to determine if the CDA struggled to drive them. The short answer is that the CDA was able to power most of my gear. IEMs certainly were never a problem. Headphones like the Elex HD800S, the Zeus, meze 99 Classics, HD6XX, LCD 1 and 2, the DT1990, they all got plentiful power for peak performance. But specialized headphones like the Argons or the T60RP did not perform particularly well. The Argons really do need about 1 watt, for example. I am disappointed that Colorfly, like many other manufacturers, refuses to provide power output measurements. So while we are told that the CDA has a peak output of 240 milliwatts at 32 ohms, I think they should have provided output performance at other impedances as well. I don't understand why these companies refuse to give us this information. It can only be helpful or hurtful to them. Ultimately, I found the CDA to be a very good device. It works consistently, connects flawlessly, and has sufficient amplification for most uses. It has a transparent sound signature. I think Colorfly made a perfectly good product. The CDA supports the entire spectrum of PCM audio, which represents the overwhelming majority of our audio tracks. And for those who prefer DSD, you get robust support there as well. Sorry, MQA fans. I'm confused why Colorfly added a balanced output when the DAC itself is not balanced topography. It looks like the balanced output uses the same amplification components as the unbalanced output. So why not just make the unbalanced output 240 milliwatts? It's not that big a deal, it's just an observation. Frankly, I don't think that the CDA does anything unique. It does not have a dedicated application for desktop or mobile. It does not have groundbreaking technology. I could have said that it has the highest power output in its price bracket, which may or may not be true, given we don't really know since we don't have independent measurements. So even if it's true, that might be a meaningful differentiator for some. Now, if you compare the cheaper Sound Blaster X1, you see that the X1 offers a very unique experience with its integrated software. Its resolution support and power output is not in the same league as the CDA, I'll admit that. But if you're listening to a maximum of 24-bit PCM and use typical headphones or IEMs, then the X1 is an interesting alternative, so check that out as well. Having said all that, I think the CDA-M1P is a good device. If you don't have a dongle DAC or want one with the power output that the CDA has, then I think the $80 here is a reasonable price to pay.